all the ifs that we've been doing, when we got into 2017, I've been posing a couple like questions that, I don't know, to me are just things that we can think about. This kind of, you're going in and it's a fresh start. In some ways we think a little bit differently in it. But I had posed the 1 week when we were talking about words and works, when they were challenging Jesus, and I left us with the question, what do you say? In other words, we're going to be in a lot of situations where we could be very legalistic, and definitely we know what people deserve, but, God says to us, but what do you say? What do we deserve that God didn't give us? And it's kind of like, what do you say? The ball's in our court. God leaves it with us. Another week when we were looking at forgiveness, the question that I threw out for 2017 is, what kind of kings will we be? Because in the parable, the king forgives the people that owe him money that they can't possibly pay back, and he forgives them freely. He just lets them totally off the hook. And so the question was, what kind of kings are we going to be in this next year? And last week, I posed the question, the difference between, when it comes to grace, whether we're going to be lovers or lawyers. Paul says things like the letter of the law kills. So, as a lawyer, there's a good chance that you're going to end up bringing destruction and death, rather than life that comes through grace and being a lover of God and each other. So there's been questions that have been thrown out, and today we're going to be in John 12 by request. I had said last week, if anybody has an if they want me to get into, let me know. And so Mark did. John chapter 12 is a transitional chapter to begin with, where he's kind of not like the other Gospels, but he's shown us Jesus at work, ministering. And he finally gets to chapter 12, and he's transitioning. It's Palm Sunday. The night before, there's been this dinner where, Mary pours the perfume on his feet and stuff like that. He's transitioning into the last week of Jesus' life, so to speak. We've said before that 2/3 of the book of John's Gospel takes place in 6 months. Well, nearly half of it takes place in a week. So from John chapter 13 till the end of the book is a week. It's Palm Sunday. We don't know exactly what time, but it seems to be a little bit later in the day. If somebody has John 12, would you read verse 16?
These things his disciples did not understand at the first, but when Jesus was glorified, then they remembered that these things were written of him, and that they had done these things to him.
So basically, it's Palm Sunday. They're doing what they did, but John makes sure, and he would know because he was there. He's saying we really didn't fully know what we were doing. I mean, we knew what we were doing, but we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't understand the significance of it. He's kind of like referring to Old Testament prophecies like Zechariah 9, where the king is coming into Jerusalem on a donkey and the whole thing. And he's referring to something. He said, well, we didn't really get all that until Jesus was glorified. So he's letting us know that they didn't get it. If you read verses 20 and 21, skip over 22, you can just go to 23. Would you read those, Russ?
Now there were certain Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. These therefore came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and began to ask him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. And Jesus answered them, saying, The hour is come for the Son of Man to be glorified.
So these Greeks show up. Jesus knows what's going on. It's kind of funny where John says, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't get the significance. The Greeks show up and Jesus announces, now the hour has come where the Son of Man shall be glorified. So he knows what's going on, which is, you see two different kinds of things going on that way. Jesus gets the significance of what's happening. If you go back and read verse 19.
The Pharisees therefore said to one another, You see that you are not doing any good. Look, the world has gone after him.
So what's going on here? We got the Pharisees looking at Palm Sunday. These people are going ballistic as he arrives in Jerusalem. They're all over him with palms and screaming and yelling and all kinds of stuff. In the context of that, these Greeks show up. There's no indication that they came all the way from to see Jesus, but once they're there, they make the comment that they want to see Jesus. So the Pharisees see all the Jews and all the people there that are in Jerusalem. We see these Greeks coming, and the Pharisees make the comment that the whole world is going after him, is what they say. Now, we would look at it probably and say, verse 19, well, that was, the purpose of Jesus' life, right? That all the people would come to Jesus. And, as good Christians, we'd all say, oh, yes, everybody's coming to Jesus. Keep in mind, that's not what his life was about. That's what his mission was about, for people to be coming to him. His life was about much more, and what he gives us is much more than a mission, if you know what I'm saying. In the context of verse 19, the whole world is, going after him. It shows that his mission is very effective. He's had a 3-year mission, and it appears as though it's pretty effective. His life, that's a different story. Remember, he spends 30 years of 33 years working in a carpenter shop. So there's some things we need to keep in mind with Jesus. We get so narrow tunnel vision about sometimes we really miss the big picture. The point here is that the Pharisees see it as the whole world is coming to him. We would, if we said today the whole world came to Jesus, we go, yay, But is that really the essence of his life or just the mission that he had? It's a good question to start with and think about a bit. The thing is, I find it interesting that at his birth, we've got the Magi coming from the east. At his death, we've got the Greeks coming from the west, a representation really of the whole world. The east and the west is showing up, one for his birth, one for his death, which is just kind of an interesting thing on top of it. If you read verses 20 through 22, Russ.
Now there were certain Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. These therefore came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and began to ask him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip came and told Andrew. Andrew and Philip came, and they told Jesus.
We're still following the same picture, right? The Greeks approached Philip, and a lot of people say they approached Philip because his name was Greek. They were Greek. It kind of made sense to approach him. We don't know really. John's gospel is a very mystical gospel. I don't know how else to say it. It's very mystical. He's a mystic. There's no question about it. And he's got a lot of codes and symbols throughout his book so that we can kind of pick up on what he's saying. For the most part, it's not taught that way. And consequently, unless you pursue that kind of spiritual end of John's gospel, you'll totally miss it. And what I'm saying is this. Does anybody remember where Philip and Andrew were paired together previously in John's gospel? We see Philip and Andrew paired together in the very first chapter. And what do you want? We want to see where you're staying. And we get to come and see. From that point on, John's whole gospel. You know how a little bit later Philip says, come and see? And then the Samaritan woman says, come and see. There's certain, you can follow certain things throughout John. It's all over the place. Once you see it, you can't not see it. So in other words, they're in the first chapter, come and see. Do you remember where else they're paired together? And this has nothing to do with anything. You don't have to be these are just, I'm throwing it out because they're paired together in John 12 again. I'm not saying it didn't happen that way. What I'm saying is John has a different purpose. In John 6, do you remember the feeding of the 5,000? And Jesus turns to Philip, says, how are we going to deal with this crowd, feeding them the whole thing? And it's Andrew that comes along and says, well, here's a little kid with a lunch. You got Philip, and you see, for John, when he gets to chapter 12 and he's telling us this story about the Greeks, what he's doing is he's throwing Philip and Andrew in our face again. And it's almost like he's saying, do you remember chapter 1? Have you been reading the last 11 chapters? Because I've been saying it all along. Come and see, come and see. That's what this is all about. Come and see. And in chapter 6, Philip and Andrew are two of the guys that are together that are involved in this incredible, miraculous, supernatural feeding of 5,000 people. Now the whole world is coming together. Philip and Andrew, what do they represent to you? That the whole world might see, that the whole world might be fed. Watch what's... In other words, John is trying to tell us this particular place in his gospel, something of universal proportion is about to happen. Jesus uses the expression that the Son of Man may be glorified. And that's really what we're talking about, is the Son of Man being glorified. Huge proportions to that statement in and of itself. When the Greeks say, we want to see Jesus, it's not a real nice... It would be really nice if we could see Jesus sometime this afternoon. In Greek, it's a very, very strong way of asking for something. In fact, it's a demand, really. We will see Jesus. We need to see Jesus. We've made up our minds and our wills that we are going to see Jesus. Now, for John, that's perfect, because that's what this is all about, that they would come and see, which becomes crucial for John, because John's entire book is about spiritual blindness. This becomes a really, really important little thing. I just want to put it in a different context for us. I think all of us have, I'll use the expression, shared Christ in whatever way that means with people. And we want them to accept Jesus Christ and all of that. What if you could produce Jesus right on the spot? Do you think that would make a difference to the people you're talking to about Jesus?
Yeah.
If you could go wham, and he was like right there physically. It's an interesting thought though, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how many times I've talked with people, and I'm being honest with you, okay? And I've thought, wouldn't it be great if he was like sitting right here with me in the flesh? And I could just shut up and sit back and say, okay, deal with him now. You know, you've been dealing with me. Deal with him now. You know.
Talk to him.
But the thing about this, when this little story says that they were being brought to Jesus, that wasn't enough. They wanted to see him. Now you might say, well, that's the same thing. Is it really? See, because here's what I think is the essence of this thing here. Bringing people to Jesus is good. But them seeing Jesus is better. Seeing. People are into seeing. See, we don't have to produce Jesus. All we have to do is let him do what he wants to do through our lives. I mean, they should. We're talking about bringing people to Jesus. It means anybody that we're face to face with is in the face of Jesus because he's in me. There should be a demonstration and a revelation of Jesus Christ in and through our lives that makes it quite clear they are seeing Jesus. They may not know that, but they didn't say we want to know Jesus. They said they want to see him. I think that's really what the church is crying out for today. We're tired of all your rhetoric. We're tired of your theology. We're tired of your doctrines. We're tired of your buildings. We're tired of your ceremonies. We're tired of your rituals. We're tired of your worship songs. We're tired of the way you market Christianity. We want to see him. Show me. And that is the challenge that's before all of us, I think, is that allowing Christ to reveal himself through us by doing what he does.